In this video, I will show you how I created these pop-up cards using the elements from the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero March 2023 kit. Hi, this is Anna from Crafty Anna Studio. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I post card making and paper crafting tutorials. This month, I did not get to do an unboxing of the kit, but here is a photo of the contents. The March kit is currently available as of this posting at an already discounted price. Here are the contents of both the classic and the premium kit, and a list of all the contents. If you're interested in this kit, you can use my link below at no extra cost to you. So grab it before it's gone. Let's start with the simplest of the two pop-up cards. This one with a basket of berries, which is not in the kit, but is an add-on from this month's release. I will use the kit in the second card, which I will show you later in the video. First, I will color in all the elements with Caron water-based markers. For the strawberries, I will use red and lipstick red, which is a little darker of the two. Off camera, I stamped and die cut the berries with black waterproof ink. I used an acrylic block to scribble my markers on. This is my preferred technique when using these markers. These are so pigmented that if I used them directly onto the paper, I would not be able to control the intensity of the colors. I use a fine detail brush and use the lighter red color to color in the whole berry. I'm using Bristol Smooth cardstock, but you can use watercolor paper. After coloring the berries with the lightest color, I used the darker red to paint just below the leaves and all around the edges. This will create a little bit of dimension. For the leaves, I use grass green and apple green. First, I painted the leaves and the stem with apple green, then I used the grass green and added to the middle area to create more depth. Off camera, I added another layer of cardstock to add stability, and I also stamped, die cut, and painted 9 of these berries. For the berry basket, I used praline and henna. I scribbled it on an acrylic block and then painted it first with the lightest color, which is praline. And then with the darker color henna, I painted it on certain areas to add more depth to the basket. I will speed this up a bit and come back when I'm done. I also added extra die cuts behind the basket for more stability. For the ribbon, I used gold and canary yellow with a little bit of praline. To assemble the berry basket, I start by adding glue at the back of the basket and add the first berry in the middle. Then I add glue to the back on one side and add another berry. I continue doing this, building up a stack of berries. Then I add the ribbon in the middle of the basket. Then one more berry outside the basket after adding one more layer for extra dimension. I make sure to keep it aligned with the bottom of the basket. To create two 8-2 top folding note card bases, I take a sheet of 8.5 by 11-inch heavyweight cardstock and score it at 5.5 down the middle. Since my scoreboard is a little short, I flip it and continue to score to meet the previous score mark. Then using the corner of the scoreboard, I fold it in half. Then with a paper trimmer, I cut it down the middle at 4.25, and now I have two 8-2 top folding card bases. Before I create any interactive card, I always make a mock-up just to make sure everything works. In the mock-up, I write down the measurements and any other revisions I had made to the card. To make the pop-up mechanism, I take one of the top folding card bases and open it up. On the center fold, I take a T-ruler and line it up, and with a pencil, I mark it at 1.5. Then I flip it to the other side and mark it again at 1.5. Next, on the 1.5 mark, I will measure a perpendicular line at 1.25. That's 1.25. Then I will do the same on the other 1.5 mark. Then I will join up all the markings with a line. Next, I fold the paper back on itself, and with a pair of craft scissors, I cut the two lines that start from the center fold. I have the template and measurements for this in my blog, which I will link in the video description box below, so be sure to check it out. Then I take a stylus and score the lines between the two cuts. I'll do it for both sides. If you don't have this fine tip stylus, you can use an old ball pen that has no more ink to do the scoring. After scoring, I gently fold the paper in at the score marks, then close the card base to further reinforce the score lines. Then I erase all the pencil markings. I use a mini MISTI to stamp the sentiment, wishing you the very best. Then I will trim 1/8 on both sides and the bottom before adhering it to the card base. I adhere it one side at a time to be sure it fits perfectly. I will add the berry basket to one side of the pop-up mechanism, and before it's completely dry, fold it in to make sure that the card closes properly. You can decorate the front of the card any way you like. I kept mine pretty simple. I stamped the background with black ink on white cardstock using the Farmer's Market cling stamp. First, I adhered a panel of cherry red cardstock, die cut using stitched rectangular die. To make this small white border around the stitches, I inked up the edges of the die with unicorn white ink before die cutting it. Next, I matted the stamped background on black cardstock. You can find the measurements for this in my blog post. I added the sentiment "Have a Sweet Birthday," white heat embossed and black cardstock, trimmed it before adding it to the card front. Then I added 2 more berries, one of which is popped up with foam tape. Now I'll show you how I made this box of fruits pop out of the card using the contents of the kit. This is quite similar to the first one I made, except the pop-up mechanism is the box. Off camera, I colored in all the fruits with alcohol markers, but I will color one fruit on screen just to show you my coloring technique. I am using Ohuhu markers. I take 3 kinds of red, a light, a medium, and a dark. First, I color in the whole apple with the lightest red. I'm not going to color the slice of the apple as this will be going on the inside of the card and the slice will be hidden. Next, I take the darkest red and color only the sides of the apple as well as underneath the leaf and stem. Then, I blend it out with the medium color, leaving out the middle part. Finally, I take the lightest color and blend it all in. I do the same for the greens, start with the lightest, then add the darker color to the middle of the leaf. Here are the rest of the fruits: the orange, banana, apple with a slice, grapes, persimmon, and cherries. To create the card bases, I take a sheet of 8.5 by 11-inch heavyweight cardstock and score it down the middle at 5.5. Then using the corner of the scoreboard, I fold it in half. I do the same for the red cherry cardstock. Then with a paper trimmer, I take the folded card bases and first trim the side where the opening is at 5 inches. Then I rotate it and trim at 7 inches. And that is how I make a 5 by 7 card base. I'll do the same for the red. Here's the mock-up I made for this card. I used recycled printer paper and made several revisions until I came up with a final one. You can see here I wrote down all the measurements. I will keep this in my file so I can refer back to it when I decide to make another one. Just like the previous pop-up card I made, I will measure from the center fold line. Using a T-ruler, I will mark it at 1.5 from the bottom of the card. And then, from that 1.5, I will count 2 inches to 3.5. Then, from the 1.5 mark, I will measure at 2.25. And then, the same on the other. And just like the previous card, I draw lines joining them to each other. Then draw lines to join the marks to the center fold. Next, I fold the card back on itself and cut the two lines parallel to each other. Then I score with a stylus and valley fold them to form the mechanism. Before I attach the inside of the card to the red card base, I stamped the sentiment "Wishing you good health" with intensified black ink. This ink came in the kit. For the box, I took a piece of lightweight cardstock and cut a strip at 2 inches. Then I rotated it and cut again at 4.5. Then I cut another strip at 1 inch, then cut it into 2 pieces at 2.25. Next, I took the 2 by 4.5 inch strip and scored it in half at 2.25. Then I took the other 2 smaller strips and on the 1 inch side, scored it in half. Then I angle cut each of the small strips at both sides. This is an important step as that allows the card to close properly without the flaps of the box getting in the way. Then I took a black pen and drew lines to define the edges of the box and the flaps. This is optional, of course. You can even use pattern paper instead of craft cardstock. Then I adhered it with liquid glue to the pop-up mechanism, completely covering it. Then I added the flaps on either side of the box. Then I trimmed it at 1/8 inches on one side and then I trimmed at the top about 1/4 of an inch. Then I adhered it to the inside of the red card base. I start with gluing one side first before gluing the other side. This way I can make sure that everything is all aligned. When deciding where the fruits go, I am mindful that the ends do not go behind each other. In this case, the stem of the grapes go in between the bananas, and the rest of the fruits are attached to either side of the box so that when I close it, it won't impede on each other. So the banana will go right here and the grape right next to it, but right here. I add a small bead of liquid glue at the very bottom and then I put it behind the box and make sure that one end does not touch the card base. Then I will add the grape, but this time I will adhere it to the front of the flap. So I add glue at the back, and then I carefully place it on the front of the flap, making sure that the stem of the grape is in between the 2 bananas. Then I close it just to make sure that it works perfectly fine. Now that I have that in place, I will now add the rest of the fruits. I hope you're enjoying so far and are also learning something new. If you are, I would really appreciate it if you could like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. For this persimmon, or is it persimmon? I could put it on either side, but I decided to put it behind the apple. I close the card again just to check, and then I can see that it's sticking out, so I'll move it in a little. Then for the final touch on the inside of the card, I will add the cherries. Then I will decorate the outside of the card very much like the previous card, but this time I am using the fruity cling stamp that came in the kit for the background. If you're interested in the Hero Arts products I used in this video, I have it linked in the video description below. I have a full list of supplies on my blog post, which is also listed below. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, bye!